think yes, mother of her father, mother of the book. The Prophet said to Fatima, you are the mother of her father, Abiha. Remember how Mary was referred to by Gregory Palamas. Gregory Palamas was at the cause of what preceded her. al-Kitab, it comes in two places, at verse 7, chapter 3, and verse 39, 13, but in the place where I've referred to it is here, Zukhruf 43, verse 4. And we'll just repeat these words. Hameen, by the scripture which elucidates. Truly we have appointed this an Arabic Quran, an Arabic recital, that you might comprehend. And indeed it is, in the mother of scripture, in our presence, exalted, wise. Aliyun Hakimun, elevated and wise. So let's go to the next slide, please. Kashani on this, the meaning of mother of the book. According to his commentary on Al-Zukhruf 43:4, the book is what? Is Muhammad. He's the book. So he's like the Logos. He is the Word. And Fatima is like Theotokos, the mother of the Word, the mother of God, qua Word. This is the key, let's call it an archetypal resonance that I wanted to bring out in this talk. Not that I'm saying that this equals that. It's not an equivalence, not even a metaphysical equivalence. It's a mystical resonance that I'm suggesting can be found in these ways of referring to the maternal figure in Christianity and in Islam. The book, according to Kashani, is Muhammad himself, his archetypal reality, his being, if you like, the word before it has become book. The breath of God, the Haqiqa Muhammadiyah. Now, if that's the case, if Kashani gives me permission to refer to Muhammad as the book of which the al-Kitab is the mother, then I would just take it one stage further and say when Muhammad refers to Fatima as his mother, we can say that the mother of the book is personified by Fatima as well as by Mary. In which case Fatima's designation Abiha, mother of her father, implies that she is the or a personification of the archetype in question here, mother of the book. Another Sufi, the Ottoman Ismail Haqqi Bursavi, in the 18th century, is the author of the mystical exegesis of the Quran entitled Ruh al-Bayan, another brilliant commentary on the Quran, unfortunately not translated into English, several volumes. Actually, one of the greatest things about this is that it's not just his own exegesis, Bursavi's own. He also incorporates fragments from the Najmiya, from the Kubrawiya Tariqa, a very important tariqa, a Sufi mystical brotherhood in Central Asia that was more or less incorporated into the Naqshbandis in the course of history, but whose insights into prophetology are quite astonishing, and some of the most interesting insights of Najmuddin Kubra, Najmuddin Daya, the Najmiya, the two Najmuddins who wrote this great exegesis that we don't have the full version of anymore. A lot of that is found here because Bursawi incorporates a lot of that. And part of that, by the way, is that there are different prophets of our being which correspond almost exactly to the 7 chakras of Hinduism, 7 prophets of your being, the Moses of your being, the Abraham of your being, the Muhammad of your being, the Jesus of your being. Anyway, Bursavi says here that on the same verse that the mother of the book can be identified with the guarded tablet, al-Lawh al-Mahfuz. And he adds, also mentioned in the Quran, at Surah Al-Buruj, which is Surah 85, verse 22. And he adds, since the human heart, al-Qalb al-Insani, is the true spiritual tablet, al-Lawh al-Haqiqi al-Ma'nawi. Ma'nawi is another word for spiritual. It's what Rumi refers to repeatedly as the ma'na, which is the essence, as opposed to the surah, which is the form. And the ma'nawi is not just meaning, it's what it literally means, but ma'nawi is the spiritual, metaphysical, intended object of the words, the lafz. So the human heart is the true spiritual tablet. The Quran descended upon Muhammad's heart. Similarly, the Quran, in terms of its spiritual reality, min haythul ma'na, descended upon the hearts of his descendants. So we can go into that maybe in the Q&A. I think, judging from the looks on people's faces, we are at the end of our so what I think I will do, I think I've said quite enough. There are many more slides to go, but let's stop there. And was that what you had written in the 5 more minutes?
No, something else.
All right. No,
I thought you'd think that.
I wouldn't blame you if it was 5 minutes, but anyway, thank you all. Well, actually, no, I need to applaud you because you've been a marvellous audience to speak to. But I also have to apologise and clap and applaud your patience because the looks of exhaustion on your faces indicated that I have spoken far too long, and so I applaud you for your patience.
Let's all applaud him. We're coming up to 22 minutes past 11, so we've got 8 minutes of questions or comments. That's fantastic.
This is 8 minutes for the end of what was supposed to be 2 sessions.
Yes. No, you've done me a great favour. Thank you very much.
So sorry. Really sorry.
Mark's got a question. Mark.
Oh, yes.
That was absolutely fantastic, and I just want to say how enriching it was. And I know it's a cliche and say it's more of a comment, but yeah, it's more of a comment. But it was what you were talking about, really reflective of what's been the theme that's been running across this conference, which is the idea of what Joe initially pointed out as the universal and the local, and what that sentence we use as Gregory Palamas, the idea that she's the cause of what preceded her, and it's reflective of some things I've been reading recently, and I mean in modern philosophy now there's this wrestling with the idea of contingency, the idea of this is a fragmented universe, all we have is contingency. And the philosopher Quentin Meyer-Thew, he says, well, there is one thing that we can talk about that is absolute, and that's the necessity of contingency itself. The necessity of contingency itself. And that necessity of contingency is this idea of the absolute being referred to in the singular is something that's also reflected in the work of Slavoj Žižek. He talks about the fragile absolute.
The work of who?
Slavoj Žižek. He talks about the fragile absolute. Yeah.
The Hungarian.
Yes, no, Slovenian. Yeah. But he talks about the fragile absolute. And I think that this idea of the universal in the singular is especially with that quote that blew my mind, is Gregory Palamas.
Right.
The idea that the cause that preceded is just absolutely phenomenal.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, well, without going into an area that I'm by no means an expert on, Ibn Sina talks about this in great detail, Avicenna, where he talks about that which is necessary, the contingent that is necessary through the necessity of the wajib al-wujud, which is, the necessity of existence. So you have the necessary and the contingent, but that which is necessary as contingency by virtue of the necessity of existence as such, the pure being. So we won't go into that. I'll just open up to...
I think Tom had a comment.
Just in case some of the online people might be...
Has anyone got their hands up? I can see here as well on the thing. It's hidden, but it's here, so I can see.
Thank you. I just want to thank you because I feel we've stood on holy ground this morning. That's you say we look exhausted, but it's been a good exhaustion. It's been fabulous. Can I go right back to what you began with, and that idea, and then picked up later on that idea of diversity in our shared faiths? It seems, and I hadn't realised this was there in the Quran, but it seems to me that part of the paradigm shift that we need to make in interfaith dialogue at the minute is to stop seeing plurality and diversity as a problem that has to be solved, and to see it as divinely willed, as how it is, and the fact that because it is divinely willed, it is in some ways a gift to us. It will be something that's resolved at the point of union, but in the meantime, while we all struggle along, it's more of a gift than a burden. And I just wondered if you could speak a little bit on that for us.
I would be happy we'll speak more about this perhaps later. I don't think it's fair on the group now for me to speak too much on that, but there is a great deal in the Sufi literature that helps us to come to precisely the point of celebration of diversity that you're hinting at, rather than an explanation of diversity. It's a celebration thereof, rather than simply a logical explanation of a problem, but the celebration of this, I suppose, from very briefly, from Ibn Arabi's perspective of tajalli, which is that everything in existence is the self-manifestation of the one, invisible, inconceivable, absolute. But everything in existence is a self-revelation of that absolute, which remains hidden in its revelation. So it's both revelation and it reveals and conceals at the same time. He says that on the day of judgment, your felicity will be in direct proportion to your perception of God's beauty in the different forms of his religious revelations. So the more you can see God's beauty in the different religious revelations, the more your felicity will be magnified, expanded, deepened on the day of judgment, on the resurrection. In a sense, you'll be resurrected in the form of the felicity that you have perceived of God's beauty in the form of all of his revelations, and not just in your own revelation, not just in your own religion. So he says, beware of restricting God to the form of your own belief, because then you're just an idolater. You're worshipping not God as such, but he uses this very daring phrase, al-ilah al-makhluq fil i'tiqad. What you're worshipping is a divinity created in the form of your belief. You're not worshipping God at all. You're worshipping your own religion, your own beliefs, your own self. So he said, beware of restricting God's self-revelation to what you find in your religion. When you see God revealing in other religions, investigate that, go into it, look for the sacred, the beauty, the true therein, and benefit from it, even if you're not called to actually follow that path. Because why? What you said at the beginning. Verse 48, chapter number 5 said, God willed this diversity. He could have made you one religious community. He made you as you are in order to test you by means of what he's given you. So vie with each other in goodness. And celebrate the diversity and gaze with joy at the manifestations of sanctity and beauty of other faiths, while realizing that your shir'ah, your minhaj, your law and your way is different. And you just deepen your understanding of your religion through marveling at the manifestation of God's beauty in other religions. So, I'm sorry, I wish I'd like to hear from other people.
So I think we'll conclude the morning session with again another
Bishop Anthony has his hand up. I think.
Oh, sorry. Well, we won't conclude.
We will have to conclude because I'm looking at the time. But I just wanted to pick up, because I feel in a sense it's providential that I was attending a session just the week before coming here on a book that's just been published on Mary in the Quran by Muna Tantari and Klaus von Stoch. And it was fascinating. I don't want to enter into the dispute about whether there are female prophets in Islam, but one of the things that they pointed out in their research was, just coincidentally for us here, that the commentators, Islamic commentators who were arguing for Mary as a prophetess were all from Al-Andalus. But the Ghazali had in his great stories of the prophets and the friends of God a list of prophets and Mary, but it's prophets and friends of God. So in a sense, Mary is the friend of God, which may even be of a higher status. But the fascinating thing for me in that, which relates to our inter-religious dialogue, is that they traced in their research the Marian verses in the Quran they put them in historical order rather than the order they come in the Quran, and alongside the controversies between Christians and Jews about Mary that were raging in the Arabian Peninsula at that time, and looking then at how what is said about Mary in the Quran, in a sense, mediates between the argument between the Christians and Jews. So I just, in our current context of dialogue, showing even the recitation has entered into a dialogue, and that should really be something that gives us encouragement in the endeavour that we're on.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that.
Good.
Thank you.
So, did you want to
Just very quickly, because very quickly, because what you said, Bishop Anthony, about the friend of God being, in a sense, even higher than a prophet, does take us to something very fundamental in Sufism, and for which, again, I remember I said to Sarah Sviri how grateful I was to her about her discovery for the Western Academia of Tirmidhi and Walaya. And through that, Ibn Arabi and his answering of the questions on Walaya. Walaya it can be translated as sanctity or friendship or guardianship. And the wali is the friend. Wali, Allah, is the friend of God, the saint of God. And one of the names of God is Al-Wali, as the protector, the patron, the friend, the guide, the lover. Imam Jafar as-Sadiq, the sixth Shiite Imam and the person referred to as the forebearer of all the Sufis, he famously said, Al-Walaya al-Mahabba. What is Walaya? It's Mahabba, it's love. So the friend of God is the lover of God and the beloved of God. And according to Ibn Arabi and Tirmidhi, and that very strong school of thought within Sufism, Walaya is superior to Nubuwah. It's one of the most apparently blasphemous ideas for the exoteric authorities, that sanctity can be regarded as higher than prophecy. But what Ibn Arabi and his school say is that the prophets per se are always higher and greater than the friends of God per se, the saints. But that their dimension of sanctity in their heart is superior to their dimension of prophecy within their heart. So within the heart of the prophet, sanctity takes priority over prophecy. Why? Because walaya, according to Ibn Arabi, walaya never comes to an end. Walaya is that holiness that's rooted in al-Wali, is rooted in God as such, and it cannot be circumscribed by time or place or personality. Whereas Nubuwah is defined according to the community to which the message is addressed. So the Nabi as Nabi, the messenger as a messenger, is constrained by the limitations the message on the one hand, and the community to whom that message is addressed on the other. Whereas the wali as wali is not constrained. The saint is simply one in his sanctity, or her sanctity, is one with the holiness of God. That has nothing to do with messages, nothing to do with relativization through addressing a particular community. That is just the intrinsic nature of holiness. Yeah, and that's how Ibn Arabi explains the encounter between Moses, the prototype of the law-giving prophet, and Khidr, the green man, this mysterious figure who is not a prophet, who is a saint, but the saint knows more than the prophet. So what does Ibn Arabi say on Surah 18, the Surah of the cave, the encounter between Moses and al-Khidr? He says that all Khidr did, all the green man did, was to show Moses his own dimension of walaya, which was the esoteric, the hidden dimension of his own heart, the outward face of which was nubuwah, was the message, was the law. So Khidr just showed Moses the two dimensions of his own heart. Khidr simply personified the dimension of walaya proper to the heart of Moses. So walaya is superior to nubuwah within the heart of the Prophet. Yeah, and this is why also the Prophet said to Ali, who is the great waliullah par excellence, the great friend of God, who is called the Mawla, the master of all the Muslims, from the same root as Wali, Mawla. The Prophet said, he raised Ali's hand in front of thousands of pilgrims at the return from the last pilgrimage from Mecca to Medina. He stopped them all at this barren place in the desert, thousands of them, and then raised Ali's hand and said, whoever considers me their Mawla, their master, their guide, their Wali, Ali is his Mawla. So, did he designate Ali as his successor politically, or was he simply saying he is the spiritual master of all of you after I pass away? That's the question over which the Shias and the Sunnis have spilled so much blood these last 1400 years. That what was without doubt was that he said, yes, Ali is your Mawla, he's your spiritual master. Learn from him everything once I've gone. The Shia say it also means he was to be the first caliph and not Abu Bakr. That's the political point of the controversy. But spiritually speaking, there's no controversy. Spiritually, it means that he is the Mawla. And then he said to Ali also, Ali, I am from you as well as you being from me. In the same way he said to his daughter Fatima, you are the mother of her father. He said to Ali, I'm also from you. So what he's referring to here is that I, as a prophet, derive my prophethood from something superior, which is the walaya in God, of which you and Fatima and my Ahl Bayt, my family, my descendants, are prolongations of walaya, not nubuwah, of sanctity, of holiness. And my nubuwah is subordinate to that walaya of which you are the personification. I, the Prophet, personify both walaya and nubuwah, but insofar as I'm a prophet, I come from you insofar as you're as a saint. Which is very, very daring, very, very controversial. But without this kind of understanding of the mystery of the divine, of the al-Kitab, something that transcends the formal, articulated, if you like, masculine manifestation of the Logos as something intrinsically feminine, receptive, maternal, and relates to the prototype, the cosmic womb, which precedes all creation and revelation. With those sorts of distinctions, we might be able to make sense of it.
So we'll have a break now until 12 o'clock, 20 minutes break, 11 o'clock UK time.